Hell's Angel's daughter was beaten until unconscious. 1 hour later, 399 bikers came for revenge. The Sunday lunch rush at Maggie's diner was winding down, leaving behind the lingering smells of fried chicken, mashed potatoes, and apple pie. 19-year-old Lily Hale moved between the tables with practiced ease, refilling coffee cups and checking on her customers with a genuine smile that made even the grumpiest of patrons soften. "How's everything tasting, Mr. Jenkins?" Lily asked, tucking a strand of her chestnut hair behind her ear. The leather bracelet on her wrist, worn and weathered but clearly cherished, slid down her arm as she reached for the coffee pot. The elderly man looked up from his newspaper and grinned, revealing a missing tooth. "Best meatloaf in the county, Lily girl. Just like every Sunday?" Lily laughed. "I'll tell Maggie you said so, though between us, I think she already knows." The bell above the door jingled, and Lily turned to see Sheriff Davis walk in, removing his hat as he headed for his usual booth by the window. His face crinkled into a smile when he spotted her. "Afternoon, Lily. Busy day?" "The usual Sunday madness," she replied, already pouring him a cup of coffee. "Dad doing okay?" the sheriff asked, his voice casual but his eyes watchful. Lily's smile remained steady, though something flickered briefly in her eyes. "He's fine. Working on a bike out in Greenville today?" "Before you continue listening, please let me know where in the world are you watching from today." Now back to the story. Sheriff Davis nodded, not pressing further. Everyone in town knew Marcus Hale's history, former Hell's Angel turned motorcycle mechanic. Most kept their distance, but Lily had somehow managed to carve out her own identity, separate from her father's intimidating reputation. "Let me guess. Chicken fried steak, extra gravy on the potatoes, hold the peas?" Lily asked, her pen hovering over her notepad. The sheriff chuckled. "You know me too well." At the counter, Mrs. Wilson waved Lily over. The elderly woman was a fixture at the diner, coming in every Sunday after church, dressed in her finest floral dress and pearl necklace. "Lily, dear, have you thought any more about those college applications?" "So," Wilson asked, stirring her tea with careful precision. "Fall deadlines will be here before you know it." Lily's smile dimmed slightly. "I'm still saving up, Mrs. Wilson. Community college might be my best bet for now." "Nonsense," the older woman said firmly. "A bright girl like you deserves a proper education. Remember what I told you about the scholarship committee?" "I remember," Lily said softly, "and I appreciate it. I just need to figure some things out first." Before Mrs. Wilson could probe further, Lily moved to help a family with a fussy toddler. She crouched down beside the high chair, making silly faces until the little boy giggled, momentarily forgetting his tantrum. "You're so good with kids," the mother said gratefully. Lily smiled. "My dad says I was born with extra patience. Not sure where I got it from. Definitely not him." As the afternoon stretched on, the diner emptied out. Lily wiped down tables, humming softly to herself. Her thoughts drifted to the notebook hidden under her mattress at home, filled with questions, addresses, and the fragments of information she'd pieced together about her mother, Elena. Maggie emerged from the kitchen, untying her apron. "You can head out early if you want, honey. Dead as a doornail out there." "You sure?" Lily asked, already reaching for her backpack beneath the counter. "I don't mind staying." "Go on," Maggie insisted. "Beautiful day outside. Don't waste it in here with us old folks." Lily didn't need to be told twice. She hung up her apron, grabbed her denim jacket, and headed for the door. The spring air felt refreshing after hours in the warm diner. She paused on the sidewalk, tilting her face toward the sun. As she started down the street, a prickling sensation at the back of her neck made her turn. Across the road, a man in a dark jacket stood watching her. He wasn't a local. Lily knew most everyone in town. Something about his stance, the deliberate way he tracked her movements, sent a chill down her spine. Lily quickened her pace, heading toward the alley that would lead her to the shortcut home. The leather bracelet her father had given her felt suddenly heavy on her wrist as she glanced back one more time. The man had started crossing the street. Lily stepped into the alley, her footsteps quickening. The narrow passage between Maggie's diner and the hardware store was littered with cardboard boxes and trash cans. But she'd walked this shortcut dozens of times. Sunlight barely reached between the tall buildings, leaving most of the alley in shadow. She pulled her denim jacket tighter around her shoulders. The spring breeze suddenly felt cold against her skin. Behind her she heard footsteps, unhurried but deliberate. Her heart pounded in her chest. "Just keep walking," she told herself. "It's probably nothing." Lily Hale. The deep voice froze her in place. Not a question. A statement. Whoever this stranger was, he knew her name. Slowly, Lily turned around. The man stood blocking the entrance to the alley, tall with broad shoulders, his face partially hidden beneath a baseball cap. His eyes were cold, calculating. "Do I know you?" Lily asked, struggling to keep her voice steady. The man took a step forward. "No, but I know all about you, about your little investigation, about the questions you've been asking." Lily's breath caught in her throat. The notebook, her search for her mother. But how could this stranger know? "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, taking a small step backward. "Don't play dumb," the man growled. "The letters, the phone calls, tracking down people from your mother's past, it stops now." Lily's mind raced. She'd been careful. So careful. She'd never told anyone about her search for Elena, not even her father. "Who are you?" Lily demanded, surprising herself with the strength in her voice. "Did my mother send you?" The man laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the brick walls. "Elena's not the one you should be worried about. Some doors are meant to stay closed, girl. Some questions don't need answers." "She's my mother," Lily said. "I have every right to know what happened to her. You have no idea what you're stirring up." The man moved closer, his face twisting into a snarl. "Consider this your only warning. Stop digging. Forget about finding Elena. If you know what's good for you, what's good for your father, you'll drop this now." At the mention of her father, something shifted inside Lily. Fear transformed into anger. "Don't you dare threaten my dad!" she said, her hands balling into fists at her sides. "He has nothing to do with this." "He has everything to do with this." The man's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "Marcus Hale's past isn't as buried as he thinks it is, and you're digging it all back up." Lily backed away, her eyes searching for a way past him. "I'm not afraid of you." "You should be." The blow came so suddenly that Lily had no time to react. His fist connected with her stomach, driving the air from her lungs. She doubled over, gasping, as pain radiated through her body. "Stop," she wheezed, trying to straighten up. "Please." The second hit caught her across the face, sending her sprawling onto the dirty asphalt. The taste of blood filled her mouth. Through a haze of pain, Lily tried to crawl away, her fingers scraping against the rough ground. "Your father needs to learn that some debts never disappear," the man said, grabbing her by the hair and yanking her head back. "Some sins can't be outrun." Lily cried out, tears streaming down her face. "I don't understand." "You're not supposed to understand," he hissed. "You're supposed to deliver a message." His boot connected with her ribs. Once. Twice. Lily heard something crack inside her chest. The pain was blinding now, white-hot flashes behind her eyelids. "Tell Marcus to stop digging," the man said, his voice coming from somewhere far away, as Lily's consciousness began to fade. "Tell him we're watching. Tell him next time we won't be so gentle." Through swollen eyes, Lily saw him reach down and grab her wrist. With a sharp tug, he tore the leather bracelet her father had given her, tossing it onto the ground beside her. "And tell him this is just the beginning." The last thing Lily saw before darkness claimed her was her father's bracelet, now stained with her blood on the dirty alley ground. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the alley as Mabel Jenkins took her usual shortcut from the pharmacy. At 72, her arthritic knees protested the longer route around the block, so she braved the alley despite her daughter's concerns. She clutched her small paper bag of prescriptions, muttering about the rising cost of her blood pressure medication. 20 steps into the narrow passage, Mabel stopped. Something lay crumpled against the wall ahead. At first, she thought someone had dumped clothes or trash, but then she saw a hand. Pale fingers splayed against the dirty concrete. "Hello?" Mabel called, her voice wavering. "Are you all right there?" No response. Heart hammering, she inched closer. The shape resolved into a young woman, face down on the ground. A pool of dark liquid spread beneath her head. Blood. "Oh, good Lord!" Mabel gasped, nearly dropping her prescription bag. She recognized the girl instantly, Lily from the diner, who always remembered Mabel liked extra maple syrup with her pancakes. Mabel fumbled for her cell phone, hands shaking so badly she dropped it twice before managing to dial 911. "Emergency services, what's your situation?" A calm voice answered. "There's a girl." Mabel's voice cracked. "Behind Maggie's diner. She's hurt bad, bleeding. It's Lily Hale, Marcus Hale's daughter. Please, hurry." "Ma'am, is she breathing?" the dispatcher asked. Mabel knelt awkwardly beside Lily, her old knees protesting. She placed a tentative hand on the girl's back. There was movement. Slight, but there. "Yes," Mabel said, relief washing through her. "She's breathing, but she's not moving. She's all beaten up. Please, send someone quick." "Emergency services are on their way. Stay with her if you can, but don't move her." Mabel spotted something on the ground. A leather bracelet, torn and bloodied. She recognized it as the one Lily always wore. Marcus had made it for her years ago. With trembling fingers, Mabel picked it up and slipped it into her pocket. "Lily, honey," she whispered, gently brushing hair from the girl's face. "Help is coming. You hang on now." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder by the second. Within minutes, the alley filled with flashing lights as paramedics rushed in with a stretcher and equipment. "Found her like this," Mabel told a young paramedic as they gently rolled Lily onto her back. "She works at the diner. Good girl, never hurt nobody." Lily's face was barely recognizable through the bruising and blood. The paramedics worked quickly, checking vitals, applying a neck brace, speaking in urgent, clipped sentences to each other. "BP's dropping. Possible internal bleeding. Multiple contusions and lacerations. Prep for immediate transport." They lifted Lily onto the stretcher with practiced care. One paramedic turned to Mabel. "Did you see what happened, ma'am?" Mabel shook her head. "Just found her like that. But I know her daddy, Marcus Hale. Someone needs to call him." The paramedic nodded. "We'll take care of that from the hospital. You did good calling us so quickly." As they wheeled Lily toward the waiting ambulance, Mabel called out, "Which hospital are you taking her to?" "County General," one replied over his shoulder. Mabel watched the ambulance doors close, then pulled out her phone again with shaking hands. She might not ride a motorcycle or have tattoos, but in a small town like this, everyone knew how to reach Marcus Hale. At Hale's custom garage, the sound of metal on metal rang out as Marcus tightened the last bolt on a Harley's exhaust system. At 45, his hands were still steady, his muscles firm beneath the faded tattoos that covered his arms. Sweat beaded on his forehead, despite the large fans circulating air through the garage. "That should do it, Jimmy," he called to his assistant. "Fire her up." The younger man nodded and turned the key. The motorcycle roared to life, its rumble smooth and controlled. Marcus nodded in satisfaction, wiping his hands on a rag tucked into his back pocket. The phone rang, barely audible over the engine noise. Marcus gestured for Jimmy to cut the motor and reached for his cell phone on the workbench. He didn't recognize the number. "Hale," he answered, his deep voice gruff. "Marcus, it's County General Hospital calling about your daughter, Lily Hale." The world stopped. Marcus felt his heart slam against his ribs. "What about my daughter?" His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "Sir, Lily was brought in by ambulance about 10 minutes ago. She's been seriously injured." Marcus didn't wait to hear more. "I'm coming. Tell her I'm coming." He ended the call, grabbed his keys from the hook by the door, and shouted to Jimmy, "Lock up! Family emergency!" Without waiting for a response, Marcus sprinted to his bike, a custom-built machine that rumbled to life beneath him. His hands shook as he pulled on his helmet, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. Fear, pure, cold fear gripped his chest. Lily, his little girl. The only good thing he'd ever made in this world. The tires squealed as he tore out of the parking lot, the speedometer climbing rapidly as he weaved through traffic. His mind raced faster than his motorcycle. Seriously injured. The words echoed in his head like a curse. What had happened? Who had hurt her? As he ran a red light, horns blaring in his wake, Marcus made a silent promise to whoever had touched his daughter. They would pay, and no force on earth would be able to protect them from what was coming. The automatic doors of County General Hospital barely had time to slide open before Marcus burst through them. His boots pounded against the polished floor as he strode toward the reception desk, drawing stares from patients in the waiting area. With his leather vest bearing the Hells Angels patch, tattooed arms, and a face hardened by years on the road, Marcus looked exactly like what he was. A man not to be crossed. "My daughter," he said, his voice tight with controlled panic. "Lily Hale. They brought her in by ambulance." The receptionist, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, recognized the name immediately. "Mr. Hale, yes. The doctor is with her now in the trauma unit. Let me page someone to take you back." Marcus nodded, his fingers drumming against the counter. Every second felt like an eternity. A young nurse appeared and guided him through double doors into the heart of the hospital. "She's stable, Mr. Hale," the nurse explained as they walked. "But her injuries are severe. The doctor will explain everything." The hallway seemed to stretch forever. The antiseptic smell burned Marcus's nostrils, mixing with the underlying scent of sickness and fear that all hospitals carried. He'd always hated hospitals. Too many memories of brothers patched up after fights or accidents. Too many last goodbyes. They stopped outside a room where a doctor in blue scrubs stood reviewing a chart. The doctor looked up, his face serious but composed. "Mr. Hale, I'm Dr. Brennan. Your daughter has sustained multiple injuries from what appears to be a severe beating." The words hit Marcus like physical blows. "How bad?" His voice came out rough, barely above a whisper. "Concussion, 3 broken ribs, a fractured wrist, and numerous contusions. There's some internal bleeding we're monitoring closely. She's unconscious but stable." "Will she?" Marcus couldn't finish the question. "We expect her to pull through, but the next 24 hours are critical. We'll know more when she wakes up." Marcus nodded, his throat too tight to speak. You can see her now, the doctor said gently. Talk to her. Sometimes patients can hear even when they're unconscious. Marcus stepped into the room, and the sight of Lily nearly brought him to his knees. His vibrant, laughing daughter lay still as death, her face swollen and discolored. Tubes and wires connected her to machines that beeped steadily, monitoring her fragile hold on life. A bandage wrapped around her head, and her right arm rested in a cast. Lily, he whispered, approaching the bed. He reached out with a trembling hand to touch her fingers, the only part of her that seemed uninjured. Daddy's here, baby. Marcus lowered himself into the chair beside her bed, still clutching her hand. The rage he'd been holding back surged through him like wildfire, threatening to consume everything. Someone had done this to his child. Someone had beaten his little girl and left her for dead. I'm going to find who did this, he promised, his voice low and dangerous, and they'll wish they'd never been born. But beneath the rage was something even more powerful. Fear. Fear of losing the one pure thing in his life, for all his reputation, for all the violence he'd seen and dealt. Nothing had prepared him for the sight of his daughter fighting for her life. A nurse entered to check Lily's vitals, working quietly around Marcus. There's something else, she said, reaching into a clear plastic bag labeled with Lily's name. This was found with her. She handed Marcus a small notebook, its edges stained with dirt and blood. Without letting go of Lily's hand, Marcus flipped it open. Inside were questions, dozens of them, all about Elena, Lily's mother, the woman who had walked out on them 15 years ago. Why did Mom really leave? Where is she now? Does she ever think about me? The final entry, dated just yesterday, made his blood run cold. Meeting Mom again tomorrow. So many questions to ask her. Marcus closed the notebook, his mind reeling. Lily had found Elena, had been meeting with her. What did this have to do with the attack? A nurse touched his shoulder gently. We need to run some tests. You can wait in the family room, and we'll come get you as soon as we're done. Marcus nodded numbly, kissing Lily's forehead before stepping out of the room. In the hallway, he leaned against the wall, struggling to process everything. The rage in his heart crystallized into something cold and deadly. He pushed himself away from the wall and walked through the automatic doors into the parking lot. The evening air hit his face, but he barely felt it. Marcus pulled out his phone and dialed a number he rarely used except in emergencies. Big John, he said when the call connected. It's Marcus. Someone beat Lily half to death. I need everyone. Now. The response was immediate. Where? County General. And John? Tell them to come heavy. Marcus ended the call and looked back at the hospital where his daughter lay broken. The man who had walked in was a worried father. The man who now stood in the parking lot was something else entirely. A Hell's Angel calling in his brothers for war. Within the hour, the distant rumble of motorcycles grew from a whisper to a roar. It started with just a few bikes rolling into town, then dozens, then scores. They came in waves, leather-clad riders on thundering machines. The residents of Pine Ridge stopped in their tracks, watching with wide eyes and worried faces as the bikers filled Main Street. Marcus stood in the hospital parking lot, his face grim as he counted the arrivals. Men he hadn't seen in years had answered his call without hesitation. Old debts, old friendships, old bonds. None of it mattered now. What mattered was that his brothers had come when he needed them. The first to arrive was Big John, a mountain of a man with a silver beard that reached his chest. He dismounted his Harley and crossed the lot in 4 long strides. How is she? He asked, clasping Marcus's shoulder. Still unconscious? Doctor says the next 24 hours will tell. Marcus's voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed his fear. We're here now. Every chapter within 500 miles sent men. Big John looked over his shoulder at the growing crowd. 399 of us by my count. Marcus nodded, watching as the hospital staff gathered at windows, their faces showing a mix of awe and terror as the bikers continued to arrive. Across the street, townspeople huddled in small groups, whispering anxiously. Some hurried to lock up shops or usher children indoors. Sheriff Cooper's patrol car pulled into the lot, lights flashing but siren silent. He stepped out, hand resting cautiously on his holster, and approached Marcus. "Hale," he said, his voice tense but controlled. "Want to tell me what's happening here?" "My daughter was beaten today," Marcus replied, meeting the sheriff's gaze. "These men are my family." Cooper glanced at the sea of motorcycles and leather-clad men still arriving. "I know about Lily. We're investigating, but I can't have 400 bikers taking over my town." "We're not here to cause trouble," Marcus said. "That so?" The sheriff's skepticism was plain. "Because it looks like you're assembling an army." Big John stepped forward, his massive frame dwarfing the sheriff. "The man's daughter is fighting for her life in there. Show some respect." Tension crackled between them until Marcus placed a hand on Big John's arm. "It's all right," he said. "Sheriff, I give you my word. We're not here to tear your town apart." Cooper didn't look convinced. "Then why are they here, Marcus?" Before Marcus could answer, a nurse hurried out of the hospital. "Mr. Hale, your daughter is awake. She's asking for you." Relief washed over Marcus's face. He turned to Big John. "Get everyone organized. I need to see her." As Marcus rushed back into the hospital, Big John faced the sheriff. "You going to stand there all night? Or you going to help us find who did this to an innocent girl?" Inside, Marcus found Lily with her eyes open, though clouded with pain. The sight of her conscience brought tears to his eyes. "Dad," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I'm here, baby. I'm right here." He took her hand, careful of the IV lines. "The man who did this," she struggled. "He said to tell you, to stop digging. Said it wasn't random." Marcus felt ice in his veins. "Did you recognize him?" She shook her head slightly, wincing. "Never saw him before." "Dad, I found Mom. I've been talking to her." "I know, sweetheart. I found your notebook." He squeezed her hand gently. "Rest now. We'll talk about it when you're stronger." "Are those motorcycles I hear?" A faint smile touched her swollen lips. "Just some old friends coming to check on you." Her eyes drifted closed. "So many engines." Marcus kissed her forehead as she slipped back into sleep, then returned to the parking lot. What he found there stopped him in his tracks. The bikers had formed a perimeter around the entire hospital. Some sat on their bikes, others stood in small groups, all of them watchful, tense, ready for war. The townspeople had gathered in larger numbers now, whispering and pointing. Several news vans had parked across the street, reporters setting up cameras. Big John approached. "Word's out about what happened to Lily. We're ready when you are. Just say the word, and we'll turn this town upside down until we find who did this." Marcus looked around at the faces of men who had ridden through the night to stand with him. Men with nicknames like Butcher, Hammer, and Grim. Men whose pasts were as dark and complicated as his own. Men who expected blood. He thought of Lily's words. Not random. Stop digging. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was something bigger. Something connected to the past he'd tried to leave behind. Marcus climbed onto the bed of a pickup truck so everyone could see him. The crowd of bikers grew quiet, waiting. Even the townspeople and reporters fell silent. "My daughter was attacked today," he called out, his voice carrying across the parking lot. "Someone tried to send me a message through her." He paused, letting his gaze sweep over the assembled riders. "I called, and you came. 400 strong. I'll never forget that." The bikers nodded, many raising fists in solidarity. "But this isn't going to be what everyone expects," Marcus continued. "We're not here to tear this town apart. We're here to protect my daughter while I find out who did this." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This wasn't what many had ridden hundreds of miles for. "I want 4-man teams rotating around this hospital, around the clock. Nobody gets in or out without being seen. The rest of you, find rooms, find food. But stay ready. This isn't over, but it's going to be done right." The hospital corridor buzzed with whispered conversations as afternoon light faded into evening. Marcus paced outside Lily's room while doctors examined her. The rhythmic squeak of his leather boots on the polished floor echoed his heartbeat, steady but strained. Through the window, the orange sunset cast long shadows across the parking lot where his brothers maintained their vigil. Dr. Reynolds, a woman with kind eyes and graying hair pulled into a tight bun, finally emerged from Lily's room. Marcus stopped pacing immediately, searching her face for any sign of news. "Mr. Hale," she said, clutching a clipboard to her chest. "I have an update on your daughter's condition." Marcus squared his shoulders, bracing himself. "Tell me straight, Doc." "Lily has suffered a severe concussion, 3 broken ribs, and extensive bruising." "Doctor," Reynolds spoke with practiced calm. "There's some internal bleeding we're monitoring closely, but it appears to be stabilizing on its own." "Is she going to be okay?" Marcus's voice came out rougher than he intended. "Barring any complications, yes, she will recover." Dr. Reynolds offered a small, reassuring smile. "She's young and remarkably strong. The next 24 hours are critical, but I'm cautiously optimistic." Marcus exhaled sharply, feeling his knees weaken with relief. He steadied himself against the wall, running a hand through his graying hair. "She woke up earlier, but now she's out again. Is that normal?" "Very normal with concussions. She'll drift in and out for a while." The doctor made a note on her clipboard. "We're keeping her sedated to help with the pain and give her body a chance to begin healing." "When will she wake up again?" "It's hard to say exactly. Could be a few hours, could be morning." Dr. Reynolds glanced at her watch. "I'm going to order another scan in the morning to check on the internal bleeding. For now, the best thing is rest." Marcus nodded, absorbing the information. "Thank you." "You can sit with her if you'd like," the doctor added. "Just be mindful of the equipment, and call for a nurse if anything changes." When the doctor left, Marcus stood frozen for a moment, gathering his courage. Through the half-open door, he could see Lily's small form in the hospital bed, dwarfed by machines and tubes. His daughter, his whole world, looked so fragile under the harsh fluorescent lights. He stepped into the room quietly, as if afraid to disturb her sleep. The steady beeping of the heart monitor provided a comforting rhythm. Lily's face was barely recognizable beneath the swelling and bruises. Her left eye was completely swollen shut, and a line of neat stitches closed a gash along her right cheekbone. Marcus lowered himself into the chair beside her bed, the plastic creaking under his weight. He reached for her hand, careful of the IV taped to her skin. Her fingers felt cold and small in his calloused palm. "I'm here, Lily girl," he whispered, using the nickname from her childhood. "You just rest now. I'm not going anywhere." Outside the window, Marcus could see the first stars appearing in the darkening sky. The parking lot below was now lit by headlights and the glow of cigarettes as his brothers maintained their watch. Their presence brought him comfort, even as guilt gnawed at him. Lily had been hurt because of him, because of something from his past. His gaze fell on her backpack, which a nurse had placed on the small table beside the bed. Inside were Lily's personal belongings, the items she'd had with her when she was attacked. Marcus hesitated, then reached for it. He needed clues, anything that might help him understand what had happened. He carefully emptied the contents onto his lap: her wallet, keys, phone with a cracked screen, a small makeup bag, and a worn, leather-bound notebook he'd never seen before. The notebook's edges were soft from frequent handling, and a frayed ribbon marked a page. Marcus opened it to the marked page and felt his breath catch. There, in Lily's neat handwriting, were lists of questions, all about Elena, his ex-wife, Lily's mother. Why did she leave without saying goodbye? Does she ever ask about me? Did Dad tell the truth about her leaving us? Page after page revealed his daughter's secret quest to understand the mother she barely remembered. Notes documented addresses, phone numbers, and what appeared to be meeting times. In the margin of one page, Lily had written, "Coffee with Mom, third meeting," followed by a date just 1 week earlier. Marcus stared at the words, his hand trembling slightly. Elena was back in their lives, and Lily had kept it from him. After 15 years of silence, of letting Lily believe her mother simply didn't want them anymore. He turned another page and found a photo tucked inside, Elena and Lily, arms around each other, smiling outside a cafe he recognized in the next town over. They had the same eyes, the same smile. His chest tightened at the sight. "Oh, Lily," he whispered, gently closing the notebook. "What have you gotten yourself into?" Marcus flipped through more pages of Lily's notebook, his heart growing heavier with each revelation. The hospital room had grown dimmer as evening settled in, with only the small bedside lamp casting a soft glow over his daughter's unconscious form. The steady beep of the heart monitor provided a mechanical backdrop to his racing thoughts. 3 months, he whispered, tracing the dates in Lily's careful handwriting. "You've been seeing her for 3 months?" The notebook contained detailed accounts of 7 separate meetings with Elena. Lily had documented everything. What they talked about, how Elena looked, even small mannerisms that reminded Lily of herself. There were questions crossed out after being answered, and new ones added in margins. One entry caught his eye. "Mom says she didn't leave because she didn't love us. Says there's more to the story. Dad never told me everything." Marcus ran a hand over his face, feeling the rough stubble against his palm. 15 years of believing Elena had simply walked out on them. 15 years of raising Lily alone, telling her that her mother had made her choice. Now it seemed there might be more to the story, at least according to Elena. "What game are you playing, Elena?" he murmured, his fingers tracing over a small sketch Lily had made of her mother's profile. The last entry was dated just 2 days ago. "Meeting Mom tomorrow after work. She sounds worried about something. Says we might need to stop meeting for a while. I need to know why." That meeting would have been today, just before Lily was attacked. Marcus closed the notebook and leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. The timing couldn't be coincidence. Elena returns, starts secret meetings with Lily, then suddenly wants to stop just before Lily is brutally beaten? His jaw clenched as anger and confusion battled within him. A soft knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. It was Jake, one of his oldest friends from the club, standing awkwardly in the doorway with his leather vest and gray ponytail. "How's she doing?" Jake asked quietly. "Stable," Marcus replied, carefully tucking the notebook back into Lily's backpack. Doctor says she'll pull through. Jake nodded, relief visible on his weathered face. That's good news. He hesitated, then stepped further into the room. We found something. Thought you should know right away. Marcus straightened in his chair, instantly alert. What is it? Couple of the boys were asking around town. Turns out there was a witness, someone who saw a part of what happened to Lily. Who? Old man who lives in the apartment above the alley. He was watering his plants on the fire escape when it happened. Didn't see the whole thing, but he heard what the guy said to Lily before he took off. Marcus stood slowly, his eyes never leaving Jake's face. And? Jake glanced at Lily's unconscious form before answering. The attacker told her, "Tell your father to stop digging." Those were his exact words. The room seemed to grow colder. Marcus's hands curled into fists at his sides. You're sure about this? The old man's sure. Said he couldn't do anything to help. He's 83 with a bad hip. But he called 911 as soon as the guy left. Marcus turned to look at his daughter, taking in the bruises, the machines helping her breathe. This wasn't random. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong or some town drunk getting violent. This was a message. For him. They used her to get to me, Marcus said, his voice barely audible. Jake moved closer, placing a hand on his friend's shoulder. Looks that way. Question is, what have you been digging into that's got someone so spooked? Marcus shook his head, his mind racing through possibilities. I don't know. I haven't been digging into anything. He paused, looking down at Lily's backpack where the notebook was hidden. But someone has. The pieces were starting to connect in Marcus's mind. Lily's secret meetings with Elena, the warning to stop digging, the brutal attack meant to send a message. This wasn't about his current life. This was something from the past resurfacing. Something connected to Elena. Keep men on the hospital, Marcus ordered, his voice shifting into the tone he used when leading the club. Double the watch overnight. No one gets in this room without being checked. Already done, Jake assured him. What's the next move? Marcus looked at Lily one more time, then back to his friend. I need to find Elena. The hospital hallway lights dimmed as evening shifted into night. The usual bustle of the day staff had given way to the quieter rhythm of the night shift. Outside, a gentle rain had started, droplets pattering against the windows and creating silver streaks in the parking lot lights. Marcus stood at the nurse's station, his imposing frame drawing nervous glances from the staff. Despite his efforts to appear calm, tension radiated from him like heat. His leather vest with the Hell's Angels patches seemed out of place against the sterile hospital backdrop, yet he had no intention of leaving. I need to see my daughter's personal effects, Marcus said to the night nurse, keeping his voice deliberately even. Everything she had with her when she was brought in. The nurse, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes but a wary expression, nodded slowly. I'll check with security. They should have logged everything. As she made the call, Marcus glanced down the corridor where two of his brothers stood silently, their backs against the wall. Throughout the building, bikers had taken up strategic positions, by exits in the lobby near the elevators. They weren't causing trouble. They were simply present, a constant reminder that Lily was protected. Mr. Hale? The nurse's voice drew his attention back. Security says they have your daughter's belongings. You can collect them at the main desk downstairs. Marcus nodded. Thank you. One more thing. Did my daughter have any visitors in the last few weeks? When she volunteered here? The nurse's expression softened slightly. Lily's one of our favorite volunteers, always so good with the elderly patients. She hesitated. I can't discuss who might have visited her officially, but… Please, Marcus said, surprising himself with the word. It's important. Something in his face must have reached her because she sighed and lowered her voice. There was a woman who came by a few times. I assumed she was family. They have the same eyes. Lily always took her break when this woman showed up. Did you catch her name? I think it was Ellen. No, Elena, that's it. Marcus's heart hammered in his chest. When was the last time you saw her? About 3 days ago. They seemed to be having a serious conversation in the cafeteria. Lily looked upset when they finished. Marcus thanked her and headed towards the elevators. Jake fell into step beside him, having waited nearby during the conversation. You got something? Jake asked quietly. Elena's been meeting Lily here too, Marcus replied, jabbing the elevator button. Not just at the diner. As they descended to the main floor, Marcus filled Jake in on what he'd learned from Lily's notebook. The elevator doors opened to reveal the hospital lobby, where 4 more bikers stood quietly near the entrance, their presence causing visitors to give them a wide berth. At the security desk, Marcus collected the plastic bag containing Lily's belongings, her wallet, phone, keys, and the leather bracelet he'd given her for her 18th birthday. The bracelet was torn and stained with blood, and Marcus had to fight back a surge of rage as he held it. Her phone's locked, he muttered, turning the device over in his hand. You know her code? Jake asked. Marcus shook his head. She changed it recently. He stared at the phone, then at the bracelet in his hand. But I think I know where to start looking for Elena. Marcus walked toward the hospital entrance, nodding to his brothers standing guard. Outside, dozens more bikers remained stationed around the building and throughout the parking lot, some sheltered from the rain under the building's overhangs, others simply enduring it, water beading on their leather jackets. Thompson, the club's vice president, approached as Marcus emerged. Everything okay with Lily? No change, Marcus said, but I need to find someone. I need to find Elena. Your ex? Thompson's eyebrows rose. What's she got to do with this? Marcus's jaw tightened. Lily's been meeting with her secretly for months. The last meeting was scheduled right before the attack. The timing's not a coincidence. You think Elena set Lily up? Thompson asked, his voice hardening. I don't know what to think, Marcus admitted. But the attacker left a message for me to stop digging. I haven't been digging into anything, but Lily has. She's been digging into why her mother disappeared 15 years ago. Marcus looked back at the hospital, at his daughter's window where a soft light still glowed. I need answers, and Elena has them. She's the key to understanding why someone would hurt Lily to send me a message. Where do we start? Thompson asked. Marcus gripped the torn bracelet in his hand. The diner. We start at the diner. The rumble of motorcycles cut through the night as Marcus led a small group away from the hospital. The rain had stopped, leaving wet roads that reflected the moon peeking through broken clouds. 4 riders followed him, Thompson, Jake, Riggs, and Cooper, men he'd trust with his life. The rest of the club remained stationed around the hospital, a living fortress protecting his daughter. We'll cover more ground if we split up, Marcus called over his shoulder as they approached the town's main street. His voice was rough from hours of worry and little sleep. Jake and Cooper, check the motels on the highway. Thompson, you're with me at the diner. Riggs, head to the bus station. See if anyone matching Elena's description has been hanging around. The men nodded, their faces grim with purpose. They understood the stakes. This wasn't club business. This was family. Marcus watched as Jake and Cooper peeled off toward the highway, their taillights soon swallowed by darkness. Riggs headed east toward the bus depot. Then Marcus gunned his engine. the familiar vibration beneath him providing small comfort as he and Thompson rode toward Lou's diner. The diner sat dark and closed, yellow police tape still marking the alley where Lily had been found. Marcus parked his bike and stood staring at the building, memories washing over him. Lily had started working here at 16, proud to earn her own money. He'd sit at the counter some mornings, watching her confident smile as she poured coffee for the regulars. "Lou lives upstairs," Marcus said, pointing to the lit window above the diner. "If anyone knows where Elena's staying, it's him." They climbed the metal staircase at the back of the building. Marcus knocked firmly, then stepped back where Lou could see him through the peephole. The door opened to reveal Lou, a stocky man in his 60s wearing a faded bathrobe over flannel pajamas. His eyes widened at the sight of Marcus. "I figured you'd show up eventually," Lou said, stepping aside to let them in. The apartment was small but tidy. Newspapers were stacked neatly on a coffee table, and family photos lined the walls. Lou gestured toward the couch. "How's Lily?" he asked, his voice softening. "Stable," Marcus replied, remaining standing. "Lou, I need to find Elena." Lou's expression shifted. "So you know?" "That she's been meeting Lily? Yeah, I know." Marcus's fists clenched. "What I don't know is where she is now." Lou sank into his armchair, suddenly looking older. "Elena came back to town about 3 months ago. Said she wanted to reconnect with Lily but wasn't ready to face you yet." He met Marcus's gaze. "She asked me to help arrange meetings where they could talk privately. And you didn't think to tell me?" Marcus's voice was dangerously quiet. "It wasn't my place," Lou replied firmly. "Lily's 19. She makes her own choices." Thompson placed a steadying hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Where's Elena staying, Lou? It's important." Lou hesitated. "She didn't tell me exactly. Said it was safer if people didn't know." "Safer?" Marcus echoed. "She seemed scared, Marcus. Not of you. Of something else." Lou leaned forward. Lily was asking questions, digging into why Elena left all those years ago. I overheard them arguing last week. Elena was begging Lily to stop asking around about the past. Marcus exchanged a glance with Thompson. This aligned with the attacker's warning. "I need to find her, Lou." Lou sighed, then stood and rummaged through a drawer. He returned with a matchbook. "She dropped this. It's from that little bar out on Ridge Road." He handed it to Marcus. "The Bear's Den. Owner rents out some cabins behind the place." Marcus examined the matchbook, noting the phone number scrawled inside. "Thanks, Lou." As they headed back to their bikes, Thompson's phone buzzed. "It's Riggs," he said, answering. He listened for a moment, then turned to Marcus. "Bus station attendant remembers a woman matching Elena's description. She's been taking the bus into town every few days from the Ridge Road stop." Marcus nodded, pieces falling into place. "The Bear's Den is out that way." He swung onto his bike. "Let's go." The two motorcycles roared through the sleeping town and onto the dark county road that wound through the hills. The Bear's Den was a local watering hole about 15 miles outside town, popular with hunters and locals who preferred privacy with their drinks. The bar was still open when they arrived, though only a few trucks remained in the gravel parking lot. A neon sign cast a reddish glow over the weathered wooden building. Behind it, barely visible in the darkness, stood a row of small rental cabins. They parked their bikes and entered the dimly lit establishment. A few patrons glanced up, then quickly returned to their drinks. The bartender, a heavy-set woman with graying hair, eyed them warily. "We're looking for someone," Marcus said, approaching the bar. He described Elena. The bartender's expression remained neutral. "Don't know anyone by that name." Marcus placed the matchbook on the counter. She's staying in one of your cabins. Lots of people stay in the cabins, the woman replied, wiping a glass. I mind my business. Thompson slid some bills across the bar. We just need to talk to her. It's about her daughter. She's in the hospital. Something flickered in the bartender's eyes. She glanced at the money, then at Marcus. Cabin 3, she said quietly. End of the row. She's been here about 2 months. The cabin stood at the end of the row, its weathered wooden exterior barely visible in the night. A single light glowed through the thin curtains. Marcus cut his engine and sat on his bike for a long moment, his heart hammering in his chest. 15 years of anger, confusion, and hurt condensed into this single moment. Want me to wait out here? Thompson asked, his voice low. Marcus nodded. Give me some space, but stay close. Gravel crunched under his boots as he approached the cabin. The porch steps creaked beneath his weight. He stood before the door, fist raised, then paused. Through the window he caught a glimpse of movement, a woman's silhouette passing through the room. Elena, after all these years. He knocked firmly, 3 sharp raps that seemed to echo in the quiet night. The movement inside stopped. Seconds ticked by. He knocked again, harder this time. Elena, open up. It's Marcus. The silence stretched until he heard footsteps approaching. The door opened just enough to reveal a woman's face, still beautiful, but lined with years and worry. Her dark eyes widened with shock and fear. Marcus. Her voice was barely a whisper. He hadn't prepared for how seeing her would feel. The anger he'd nursed for 15 years surged forward, yet something else rose with it, a complicated ache he couldn't name. Lily's in the hospital, he said, his voice rough. Someone beat her unconscious? Elena's hand flew to her mouth. No. Oh God, no. She stepped back, the door opening wider. Is she? She'll live. No thanks to you. The words came out harsher than he'd intended. Elena's face crumpled. Please, she said, glancing past him nervously. Come inside. The cabin's interior was spare, a small living area with a kitchenette, a closed door likely leading to a bedroom. A suitcase sat open on the floor, clothes partially packed. She'd been preparing to run again. You were leaving, he asked, anger flaring, without even checking if Lily was okay? Elena closed the door and leaned against it. I was going to call the diner tomorrow to make sure she was safe. Her hands trembled. What happened? Who hurt her? Some man attacked her behind the diner, left her there bleeding. Marcus clenched his fists. Said to tell me to stop digging. He stepped closer, his voice dropping dangerously. What exactly has Lily been digging into, Elena? What did you tell her? Elena moved to a chair and sank into it, her face pale. I never should have come back. I knew it was dangerous, but I just... She looked up at him, her eyes shining with tears. I needed to see her. To explain. Explain what? Why you walked out on your family? The pain in his voice surprised him. Is that what you think happened? Elena asked quietly. Marcus stared at her. What else would I think? You disappeared without a word. No note. No call. Nothing for 15 years. Elena shook her head slowly. Marcus, I never abandoned you and Lily. I left to protect you. Protect us? His laugh was bitter. From what? The terrible burden of having a wife and mother? From Donovan Mercer. The name hit Marcus like a physical blow. Donovan Mercer. A name from his past, from his early days with the club. Bad business, buried years ago. Or so he'd thought. What does he have to do with this? Marcus's voice had gone quiet. Elena's hands twisted in her lap. 15 years ago, I found out he was looking for you. He blamed you for his brother's death and the loss of everything they had. She looked up, her gaze steady now. He wasn't just coming after you, Marcus. He said he'd take everything you loved first, make you watch. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. So you ran. I tried to tell you, but you wouldn't listen. You thought it was just club talk, that you could handle it. She stood now, approaching him cautiously. I left so he would follow me instead of staying to hurt you and Lily. I've been moving ever since, never staying in one place too long. Marcus struggled to process her words. The story upended 15 years of certainty, of feeling abandoned. You expect me to believe you've been running all this time to protect us? His voice was rough with emotion. That doesn't make sense. It made sense to me, Elena whispered. It was the only way I could think to keep you both safe. The conviction in her eyes shook him. Could it be true? Had she sacrificed everything, endured years of isolation, believing she was protecting them? Lily found me, Elena continued softly. She tracked me down somehow, started asking questions about why I left. And someone had beaten his daughter bloody to stop those questions. Marcus stood very still, the ground seeming to shift beneath him. Everything he'd believed about Elena, the anger that had fueled him for years, suddenly felt uncertain. I never abandoned you, Marcus, Elena said, her voice breaking. Never. The small cabin seemed to shrink around them as Marcus processed Elena's words. Outside, an owl hooted in the darkness. The single lamp cast long shadows across the worn wooden floor. Start from the beginning, Marcus said, his voice softer now. He pulled out a chair and sat down heavily. All of it. Elena took a deep breath and sat across from him. Her hand still trembled slightly. It was 15 years ago. You were deep in club business, working late nights, she began. I answered a call to the house. A man asked for you, wouldn't leave his name. Her eyes grew distant with memory. Something in his voice scared me. When I wouldn't tell him where you were, he said, "Tell Marcus that Donovan Mercer hasn't forgotten. Tell him I'm coming for everything he loves." Marcus's jaw tightened. Why didn't you tell me? I tried, don't you remember? Elena leaned forward, her voice urgent. But you brushed it off, said Mercer was all talk, that his brother's death was an accident during that run in Kentucky, and he needed to let it go. The memory clicked into place. Elena's worried face, him waving away her concerns. He'd been so confident back then, so sure of his place in the world. But I knew better, Elena continued. I started digging, found out Mercer had connections beyond the clubs, dangerous people with long memories. He wasn't just some angry biker. He'd spent years building a network, waiting for the right time. She paused. Then I started noticing cars driving by our house, strange men watching Lily at her school. Marcus felt a chill run through him. You should have pushed harder, made me listen. You were different then, stubborn, so convinced you could handle anything. A sad smile flickered across her face. So I made a choice. I left evidence that made it look like I'd run off with someone. I knew your pride would keep you from looking too hard. And Mercer followed you instead of coming after us, Marcus realized. Elena nodded. I became the target. I kept moving, never stayed anywhere more than a few months. I watched from a distance whenever I could, saw Lily grow up in photographs I'd take from far away. The thought of Elena alone all those years, watching their daughter from afar, hit Marcus hard. His chest tightened. But why stay away so long? Mercer couldn't have chased you for 15 years. He died 7 years ago, Elena admitted, but his people didn't. The network he built kept looking. They blame you for everything Donovan lost. They want you to suffer like he did. Her voice cracked. Every time I thought about coming back, something would happen. A car would follow me. My apartment would be broken into. They were always watching. Marcus ran a hand over his face. The pieces were fitting together, creating a picture he'd never imagined. Then Lily found you, he said quietly. Elena nodded, her eyes brightening with pride despite the circumstances. She's smart, Marcus. So smart. She tracked me through old addresses, found patterns I didn't even realize I was leaving. She sent me a letter about 6 months ago. 6 months? Marcus felt a flash of hurt that Lily had kept this secret. She wanted to understand before she told you. Wanted to hear my side. Elena's voice softened. I should have stayed away, but when she asked to meet, I couldn't say no. She's my daughter. Marcus understood. He couldn't have refused Lily either. How many times did you meet? 5 or 6? Always in public places? Always careful? Elena looked down at her hands. But someone must have recognized me, or followed her. The realization settled over Marcus like a heavy blanket. Lily's search for answers had exposed Elena's location. The questions in her notebook, her secret meetings. It had made her a target. They used Lily to send us both a message, Marcus said, his voice hardening, to stop digging into the past. Elena's eyes filled with tears. This is exactly what I was trying to prevent. Lily hurt because of old grudges. She looked up at Marcus. I never wanted to leave you, either of you, but I thought it was the only way to keep you safe. The eastern sky was just beginning to lighten when Marcus pulled into the hospital parking lot. Dawn painted the horizon in soft pinks and purples, but the beauty was lost on him. His motorcycle rumbled to silence as he cut the engine, sitting motionless for a moment. The weight of Elena's revelations pressed down on his shoulders like a physical burden. 4 bikers stood guard at the hospital entrance, their exhaustion visible but their vigilance unwavering. They nodded respectfully as Marcus approached, parting to let him through without questions. They could read the storm on his face. Anything happen? Marcus asked the tallest one, a bearded man called Rook. All quiet, boss. We've been taking shifts. Town's nervous, but nobody's causing trouble. Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. Get some rest, all of you. I need clear heads. The hospital corridors were quiet in these early morning hours. The squeak of his boots on the polished floor echoed in the stillness. Nurses at the station glanced up, then quickly returned to their work. They'd grown used to his presence overnight, though wariness still lingered in their eyes. Outside Lily's room, 2 more bikers stood watch. Bear, a mountain of a man with gentle eyes, and Cody, younger than the rest but fiercely loyal. They straightened when they saw him. She's still sleeping? Bear said softly. Nurse checked her vitals 20 minutes ago. Said everything's stable. Marcus nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. He pushed open the door and entered the dim room alone. The steady beep of the heart monitor was the only sound. Lily lay still, her face pale against the white pillow, dark bruises standing out starkly against her skin. An IV dripped fluids into her arm. She looked so young, so vulnerable, so much like Elena. Marcus sank into the chair beside the bed. Guilt crashed over him in waves. This was his fault. All of it. His past, his enemies, his blindness to the danger. Lily was paying for his mistakes. He reached out with a trembling hand and gently touched her fingers. They were warm, at least. Alive. I'm sorry, Lily. He whispered. I should have protected you better. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd spent 15 years believing Elena had abandoned them, only to discover she'd been protecting them all along. Meanwhile, he'd failed at the one job that mattered most: keeping their daughter safe. Sunlight began to filter through the blinds, casting thin stripes of gold across the blanket. Marcus rubbed his tired eyes. The anger that had driven him last night was still there, burning in his chest. But something else had joined it, a deep, aching sadness for all the lost years, all the mistakes. Lily's notebook sat on the bedside table where he'd left it. Marcus picked it up, turning the pages carefully. Her handwriting filled every page, neat and determined. Questions about her mother, notes from their meetings, small sketches of Elena's face. On one page, Lily had written, "Mom says she left to protect us. Dad never talks about it. There must be more to the story." His throat tightened. How determined she'd been, how brave, seeking answers while he remained locked in his bitterness. "You were right to look for her," he whispered to his sleeping daughter. "You were right, and I was wrong." The door opened softly, and a nurse entered to check Lily's vitals. She worked quietly, recording numbers on a chart. "Any change?" Marcus asked. "Her brain activity is good. She's healing," the nurse replied gently. "Talk to her. She might hear you." After she left, Marcus leaned closer to Lily's bed. "I found your mom," he said softly. "You were right about her. She never abandoned us. She was protecting us." His voice broke. "Just like you were protecting her by not telling me." He took Lily's hand between both of his. Hands that had done violence, now desperately gentle. "I'm going to fix this," he promised. "But not like before. Not with blind rage. I'm going to be smarter this time. I'm going to be better." He swallowed hard. "I'm going to be the father you deserve." Outside the window, the day brightened. In the parking lot, motorcycles gleamed in the morning sun. His brothers were still there, still waiting. But this wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about protection, about redemption. Marcus watched his daughter's peaceful face and made a silent vow. He would end this. But not by becoming the man he once was. This time he would find a way to break the cycle. For Lily, for Elena, for the family they might still become. Morning sunlight streamed through the hospital windows as Marcus stepped out of Lily's room to stretch his legs. He'd been sitting by her side for hours, watching for any sign of change. The hallway bustled with more activity now as the day shift began. Outside the hospital entrance, Marcus noticed something unusual. Several of his brothers in leather vests were helping an elderly couple up the steps, one biker carefully supporting each arm of the frail man, while another carried their bags. The couple looked nervous at first, then grateful. Marcus moved to the window for a better view of the parking lot. What he saw made him pause. Dozens of bikers were in motion, but not in the intimidating formation he'd expected. Bear was directing traffic, helping hospital staff find parking spaces despite the crowd of motorcycles. 3 others were unloading food from a truck and carrying boxes toward the hospital kitchen. His phone buzzed with a message from Rook. "The boys got restless just standing around. Hope you don't mind we're making ourselves useful." Marcus stepped outside, the morning air cool against his face. A nurse hurried past, then stopped and turned back. "Your friends donated blood," she said. 17 of them so far. The blood bank was running low. She hesitated. "We weren't expecting that." Neither was Marcus. He watched as Cody helped a mother with 2 small children navigate the busy entrance. The children stared wide-eyed at his tattoos, but the mother was smiling with relief as he carried their heavy bag. "Mr. Hale!" Marcus turned to find Dr. Miller, Lily's physician, approaching with a clipboard. "Your daughter's condition is stable. The swelling is starting to reduce. It's a good sign," the doctor said. "I noticed your colleagues have been helping our staff. Please thank them. It's making a difference." Marcus nodded, unsure what to say. He'd called these men here expecting a show of force, maybe even violence. Instead, they were choosing a different path. Across the street at the diner where Lily worked, more bikers were gathered. Marcus crossed over, curiosity pulling him forward. Through the window, he saw 6 of his brothers clearing tables, washing dishes and serving customers. The owner, Martha, a woman who'd always eyed Marcus with suspicion, was directing them with an expression somewhere between bewilderment and relief. "What's going on here?" Marcus asked as he entered. "Short-staffed with Lily out," explained Diesel, a massive biker with a gray beard and arms covered in tattoos. He balanced 3 plates of pancakes expertly. "Martha was going to close for the day. We figured we'd help." Martha approached, wiping her hands on her apron. "Your friends insisted," she said. "Said the town needs normalcy, not fear." Down Main Street, the pattern continued. Bikers helping unload deliveries at the grocery store. 3 of them fixing a broken bench in the town square. Another group had organized a blood drive in the community center with a sign that read, "For Lily and others in need." Marcus stood in the middle of the street, taking it all in. This wasn't what he'd intended when he made that call yesterday. He'd wanted a show of strength, a wall of intimidation. Instead, his brothers had transformed into something the town needed more: helpers in a crisis. An elderly woman with a cane approached him slowly. Marcus recognized her as Mrs. Henderson, a regular at the diner who always had a kind word for Lily. "You're her father, aren't you?" she asked, her voice quavering slightly. "The one who called these men here?" Marcus nodded, bracing for fear or accusation. Instead, she reached out and patted his arm. "I was so frightened when they all rode in," she admitted. "I've lived here 60 years, never seen anything like it, but this morning 2 of them carried my groceries home." Her eyes crinkled with a smile. "One of them even fixed my porch step. Said your Lily was always kind to him at the diner." She looked up at Marcus, her eyes clear and direct. "Sometimes help comes from unexpected places, doesn't it? Your daughter always saw the good in people. I think she gets that from you." The simple words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He'd spent so many years cultivating fear, building walls, seeing threats everywhere. Yet through it all, Lily had somehow found a way to keep her heart open. And now, without him even asking, his brothers were following her example rather than his. "Thank you, ma'am," he managed to say. As the old woman shuffled away, Marcus felt something inside him shift, a hardened part of him softening just a little. These men he'd called, these feared outlaws, were showing the town, and him, that there were more ways to be strong than through intimidation and violence. Late morning sunlight warmed the pavement as Marcus stood before a circle of his most trusted brothers outside the hospital. 20 men, all wearing leather vests adorned with patches that told stories of loyalty and hard roads traveled. "This isn't about revenge, not yet," Marcus said, his voice low and steady. "This is about protection. This is about showing this town who we really are." Diesel, his arms crossed over his broad chest, nodded. "The locals are starting to warm up. Surprised the hell out of them when we started helping instead of raising hell." "That's exactly what we need," Marcus said. "We protect Lily. We protect this town, and we find out who did this without causing more damage." He looked at each man in turn. These were brothers who'd ridden through storms with him, who'd seen him at his worst and his best. Men the world judged by their appearance without knowing their hearts. "Spread the word to everyone. I want teams of 4 rotating through town. Help where you can. Fix what needs fixing. Show them we're not what they think we are." Bear, a mountain of a man with a surprisingly gentle voice, raised his hand. "We got word that some folks are nervous about grocery shopping with all of us around. The store manager's worried about losing business." Marcus thought for a moment. "Set up escorts. Anyone who wants to shop but feels scared gets a personal escort who helps them with their bags and makes sure they feel safe. Same with the pharmacy, the bank, anywhere people need to go." The men nodded, understanding the plan without needing it spelled out. This wasn't just about changing perceptions. It was about creating a safety net around the entire town. "What about the hospital?" asked Rook. "We can't all camp out here forever." 8 men on rotation here at all times, Marcus decided. 4 outside, 4 inside. Visible but respectful. Work with the staff, not against them. As the men dispersed to spread the word, Marcus watched the transformation happening around him. The bikers moved with purpose now, organizing themselves into teams, checking in with local businesses to see what was needed. Inside the hospital lobby, Marcus found the administrator, a nervous man named Phillips, who'd been eyeing the bikers warily since their arrival. "Mr. Phillips," Marcus said, extending his hand, "I want to formally introduce myself and thank you for taking good care of my daughter." The man hesitated before shaking his hand. "Mr. Hale, I'll be honest. When all these motorcycles showed up, I nearly called in the National Guard." Marcus nodded, understanding. "I know what we look like to you, but I'm asking for a chance to show you who we really are. My men will respect your rules, help your staff, and keep things peaceful. All I ask is that you let us protect my daughter." Phillips studied him for a long moment. "Your men donated blood, helped fix the broken wheelchair ramp this morning. One of them even jump-started Dr. Evans' car." "That's who we are when you give us a chance," Marcus said simply. The administrator sighed. "Keep it peaceful, and you can stay. But the first sign of trouble won't come from us," Marcus promised. As Marcus walked back toward Lily's room, he noticed people in the hallways watching him. Not with fear now, but with curiosity. A nurse who'd been avoiding eye contact yesterday gave him a small nod. A young orderly even offered a "morning, sir," as he passed. Small steps, but steps in the right direction. Outside Lily's room, Marcus paused. Through the window, he could see she was still unconscious, the monitors steadily beeping. But something had changed in him. The burning rage that had consumed him yesterday was transforming into something more focused, more purposeful. The elevator doors opened at the end of the hall, and Marcus glanced over, expecting to see another doctor or nurse. Instead, his heart stopped. Elena stood there, hesitating as the doors closed behind her. Her dark hair was shorter than he remembered, streaked with a few strands of silver that hadn't been there 15 years ago. She wore simple jeans and a blue sweater, looking both familiar and like a stranger. Their eyes met across the hallway. 15 years of silence, regrets, and misunderstandings hung in the space between them. Elena took a deep breath and walked toward him, each step bringing her back into the life she had left behind. Back to Marcus. Back to their daughter. The afternoon sun cast long rectangles of light across Lily's hospital room. The steady beep of monitors created a rhythm that had become the soundtrack to Marcus and Elena's uneasy reunion. They sat on opposite sides of Lily's bed, the unconscious girl a bridge between their broken worlds. Marcus leaned forward in his plastic chair, elbows on his knees, his large hands clasped together. His leather vest hung over the back of the chair, a small concession to the sterile hospital environment. Elena sat perfectly straight, her fingers nervously smoothing the hem of her sweater, her eyes never leaving Lily's face. "She looks like you," Marcus said softly, breaking a silence that had stretched for nearly an hour. Elena swallowed hard. "She has your stubbornness." A ghost of a smile touched Marcus's lips. "Poor kid." The silence between them was heavy with unspoken words and memories. 15 years of separation couldn't be bridged in a few careful sentences, but for Lily's sake, they were trying. A soft change in Lily's breathing caught Elena's attention. She leaned forward, hope lighting her eyes. "Lily?" Lily's eyelids fluttered. Her fingers twitched against the white hospital sheets. Marcus immediately stood, moving closer to the bed, his heart pounding. "Lily, honey, can you hear me?" His voice was gentle, nothing like the commanding tone his brothers knew. Lily's eyes opened slowly, struggling against the brightness of the room. She blinked several times, confusion washing over her bruised face as the world came into focus. Her gaze found her father first, a look of relief spreading across her features. "Dad," she whispered, her voice raspy from disuse. Marcus's eyes filled with tears. "I'm here, baby girl. I'm right here." Lily's gaze shifted, landing on Elena sitting on the other side of the bed. For a moment, she stared, as if not trusting her own eyes. "Mom?" The word came out broken, half question, half prayer. Elena reached for Lily's hand, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, sweetheart, it's me." Lily looked from one parent to the other, her mind struggling to process that they were both here, together, after so many years apart. The realization brought a fresh wave of tears to her eyes. "You're both here," she said, wonder in her voice. "How?" Marcus and Elena exchanged a glance, an entire conversation passing between them in that look. "Your father called me," Elena said gently, "when you were hurt." "I needed to find answers," Marcus added, "and your mother had them." Lily winced as she tried to sit up. Marcus quickly adjusted her bed, helping her into a more comfortable position. The movement revealed the full extent of her injuries, bruises blooming across her face, bandages wrapped around her ribs, an IV line trailing from her arm. "What happened to me?" she asked, fragments of memory flashing behind her eyes. "There was a man, in the alley." "You don't need to think about that right now," Elena said quickly, squeezing her hand. But Lily shook her head, determination hardening her features despite the pain. "I remember. He said something about you, Dad, about stopping you." Marcus's jaw tightened. "That's something we can talk about when you're stronger." "No," Lily insisted, her voice gaining strength with each word. "I need to know now. I've spent years trying to put pieces together, years trying to understand why our family broke apart." Her eyes, so much like Elena's, fixed on both her parents. "I found Mom 6 months ago. Did you know that, Dad?" Marcus nodded slowly. "I found your notebook." "I had to know the truth," Lily continued, "and now I'm lying in a hospital bed because of secrets. No more hiding things from me." Elena and Marcus exchanged another look. This time it was Elena who nodded. "You're right," she said quietly. "No more secrets." Lily took a painful breath, looking between them. "Whatever happened in the past, whatever drove you apart, don't let it keep you apart now. Please." Her hand reached for her father's, then her mother's, bringing them together over her hospital bed. "I didn't go through all this just to watch you two keep running from each other," Lily said, tears welling in her eyes. "If anything good can come from this, let it be that you stop hiding from the truth. Stop hiding from each other." The touch of their hands, joined by their daughters, broke something in both Marcus and Elena. Years of walls, built brick by painful brick, began to crumble. "Lily!" Elena began, her voice trembling. "Please," Lily whispered. "Don't let my pain be for nothing." The afternoon sun had shifted, casting the hospital room in warm amber light. Lily had fallen back asleep, her body demanding rest to heal from the brutal attack. Marcus and Elena had moved to the small sitting area near the window, close enough to watch over their daughter, but far enough to speak without disturbing her. "She's always been stubborn," Marcus said, his eyes fixed on Lily's sleeping form. "Even as a little girl." Elena smiled faintly. "Remember when she was 4 and insisted on wearing her rain boots every day for a month? Even to bed?" "Yellow rubber boots with those little frogs on them," Marcus nodded, a genuine smile breaking through his tough exterior. "She'd stomp around the house making frog noises." "I miss so much," Elena whispered, the smile fading from her lips. Her fingers twisted nervously in her lap. 15 years of her life. Gone. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. The biker who struck fear in the hearts of many sat hunched forward, elbows on his knees, looking more vulnerable than anyone had ever seen him. "Why didn't you tell me?" he finally asked, his voice rough with emotion. "About the threats, about why you were really leaving. I could have protected you both." Elena looked at him directly, years of fear visible in her eyes. "They made it clear what would happen if I warned you. They knew everything about us, Marcus. Where Lily went to preschool, which park I took her to. They even knew about the little bear she slept with." Marcus closed his eyes, the weight of this revelation visibly settling on his broad shoulders. "I thought you'd be safer without me," Elena continued softly. "I thought they'd follow me and leave you two alone. And all this time, I thought—" Marcus couldn't finish the sentence. "That I abandoned you," Elena completed for him. "That I didn't love you enough to stay." The silence between them was heavy, but different now, no longer filled with resentment, but with shared grief for the years they'd lost. "I never stopped loving you," Elena admitted, her voice barely audible. "Or Lily. You were my first thought every morning and my last thought every night." Marcus reached across the small table between them, his calloused hand covering hers. It was the first time they'd touched intentionally since she'd arrived. "I kept your picture," he said, "in my wallet. Told myself it was for Lily, so she wouldn't forget your face. But that wasn't the whole truth." Outside the hospital window, the biker guards were changing shifts, a silent, organized rotation that spoke to the discipline Marcus had instilled in his brothers. "They respect you," Elena observed, watching the men below. "They're family," Marcus replied simply. "Different kind of family, but family all the same." "Did you ever think we'd be sitting here like this?" Elena asked. "After everything?" Marcus shook his head slowly. "Never thought I'd see you again. Tried to convince myself it was better that way. And now—" Marcus looked at her, really looked at her for the first time since she'd arrived. He saw the lines around her eyes that hadn't been there 15 years ago, the streak of gray in her dark hair, the wariness that came from years of looking over her shoulder. But beneath it all, he saw Elena, the woman who had loved him despite his rough edges, who had given him Lily, who had sacrificed everything to keep them safe. "Now I'm wondering how much time we've wasted," he said quietly. Elena's eyes filled with tears. "Me too." The moment was interrupted by a soft knock at the door. One of Marcus's trusted men, a biker named Ray, stood in the doorway, his expression grim. "Sorry to interrupt, boss, but you need to see this." Marcus stood, his guard instantly back up. He followed Ray into the hallway, where the biker handed him a plain white envelope. "Found it on your bike," Ray explained. "Nobody saw who left it." Marcus opened the envelope with steady hands. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a message composed of letters cut from magazines and newspapers. Come alone to the old mill at midnight. No bikes, no backup, or next time your daughter won't wake up. Marcus's jaw tightened, his eyes growing cold as he folded the paper and tucked it into his vest pocket. Boss? Ray questioned, concern evident in his voice. Increase security around Lily's room, Marcus ordered quietly. No one gets in except hospital staff we've already cleared. What about the note? Marcus glanced back through the doorway where Elena sat watching Lily sleep, finally reunited with her child after years of separation. I'll handle it, he said, his voice hard as stone. The hospital cafeteria buzzed with quiet evening activity as Marcus sat alone at a corner table, the threatening note unfolded before him. The harsh fluorescent lights made the cutout letters look even more sinister. He ran his hand through his graying hair, feeling the weight of every decision that had led him to this moment. Coffee, Mr. Hale? A young nurse approached with a steaming cup. Marcus nodded his thanks, quickly folding the note and tucking it away. The nurse smiled kindly before returning to her duties, unaware of the storm raging inside him. Outside the large windows, he could see his brothers keeping their silent watch. Nearly 400 bikers had come when he called, men who would die for him without question. But this time, their loyalty couldn't protect his daughter. This time their presence might be the very thing that put Lily in more danger. Marcus checked his watch. 7:45 p.m., just over 4 hours until midnight. Ray approached, pulling up a chair across from him. The guys are asking for orders, he said quietly. Tell them to stand down, Marcus replied, his voice low and certain. This is something I need to handle alone. Ray's weathered face creased with concern. Boss, we don't do alone. That's not how this works. This time it has to be. Marcus took a sip of coffee, feeling the bitter liquid burn down his throat. These people targeted my kid, Ray. They've been hunting Elena for 15 years. I'm not risking anyone else. And we're just supposed to let you walk into a trap? Ray leaned forward, loyalty and frustration competing in his voice. That's not happening. Marcus fixed his old friend with a steady gaze. I've made up my mind. At least let us set up at a distance. Something. Anything. Marcus shook his head slowly. They'll be watching. They'll know. He traced the rim of his coffee cup with one calloused finger. These aren't amateurs, Ray. They've been planning this for years. The cafeteria's fluorescent lights flickered once, casting momentary shadows across their faces. In that brief darkness, Marcus made his decision. I need you to do something for me, he said, pulling out a folded piece of paper from his jacket pocket. If this goes south, make sure Lily gets this, and make sure she and Elena are taken care of. Ray stared at the paper, but didn't take it. You're talking like a man who's not coming back. I'm talking like a father who's not making the same mistake twice. Marcus pushed the paper closer. I brought this danger to their doorstep. I'm taking it away. Finally, Ray took the note, tucking it into his vest with reluctance. The guys won't like this. They don't have to like it. They just have to respect it. Marcus stood, placing his hand briefly on his friend's shoulder before making his way back to Lily's room. Each step down the sterile hospital corridor felt heavier than the last. When he reached the doorway, he paused. Elena had fallen asleep in the chair beside Lily's bed, her hand still holding their daughter's. For one brief moment, Marcus allowed himself to imagine what life could have been if he'd made different choices. If they'd been just a normal family without the shadow of his past hanging over them. He moved quietly into the room, settling into the chair on the opposite side of Lily's bed. To his surprise, his daughter's eyes were open, watching him. "You've got that look," she whispered, her voice still weak from her injuries. "What look is that?" Marcus asked softly. "The one you get when you're about to do something stupid and dangerous?" Despite her bruised face, Lily managed a small, knowing smile. "I've seen it before." Marcus tried to keep his expression neutral, but after 19 years, his daughter could read him too well. "They contacted you, didn't they?" Lily asked, glancing briefly at her sleeping mother. "The people who did this to me." Marcus hesitated, then nodded once. No point in lying to her. "And you're planning to go alone?" It wasn't a question. "Lily, no." Her voice strengthened with conviction. "Dad, please don't do this. Not alone." "This is my mess to clean up," Marcus said firmly. "I'm not putting anyone else at risk." Lily's fingers tightened around his, surprising him with their strength. "That's exactly what Mom thought 15 years ago. How did that work out for any of us?" The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He sat back slightly, seeing the determination in his daughter's eyes, the same stubborn resolve he'd passed down to her. "We just found each other again?" Lily continued, her voice breaking slightly. "All of us. Don't throw that away by trying to be some lone hero. That's not strength, Dad. That's pride." Elena stirred in her chair, roused by the quiet conversation. Her eyes opened, taking a moment to focus in the dimly lit hospital room. When she saw Marcus and Lily deep in conversation, she straightened, immediately alert. "What's happening?" she asked, her voice husky with sleep. Her gaze moved between them, sensing the tension. Marcus hesitated. He hadn't planned on Elena being part of this conversation. Lily squeezed her father's hand. "Dad got a message. They want him to come alone." Elena's face paled. She stood up so quickly her chair scraped loudly against the floor. "When?" she demanded. "Midnight?" Marcus answered, his voice low. Elena pushed her hair back from her face, a gesture Marcus remembered from years ago whenever she was thinking hard. She looked at him with eyes that had seen too much fear, too much running. "And you're going alone," she said. It wasn't a question. Marcus nodded once. "It's the only way to end this." "No." Elena's voice was quiet but firm. She moved around Lily's bed to stand in front of Marcus. "No more sacrifices. No more running." Marcus stood to face her. "Elena, I'm not asking your permission. And I'm not asking yours." She crossed her arms, her stance solid and unmovable. "For 15 years, I've been running to keep you both safe. 15 years of looking over my shoulder, changing my name, leaving everything behind." Her voice cracked slightly. "And what did it get us? Our daughter in a hospital bed. These people found us anyway." Marcus towered over Elena's small frame, but in that moment, she seemed to fill the room with her presence. "Running and facing them alone are just different versions of the same mistake," she continued. "We tried it my way. It didn't work. We're not trying it yours." "This isn't your fight," Marcus insisted. "Not my fight?" Elena's eyes flashed. "These people have stolen 15 years of my life. 15 years I could have spent watching our daughter grow up. They made me a ghost in my own family's life." She stepped closer. "It was always my fight, Marcus. I just fought it wrong." From her bed, Lily watched them, her eyes moving between her parents. "Mom's right, Dad." Marcus turned to look at his daughter, his face softening despite himself. "Lily, I can't risk—" "They already got to me once," Lily interrupted. What makes you think they won't try again, even if you do what they ask? She struggled to sit up straighter. Think about it, Dad. If they wanted you alone just to kill you, they wouldn't have warned you. They want something else. Marcus fell silent, considering her words. She had a point. These people had been calculating for years. This wasn't just about eliminating him. It was something more. Elena placed her hand on his arm, her touch gentle but firm. We face this together, or we don't face it at all. The tremor in her voice was gone now, replaced with steel. I'm done running, Marcus. I'm done hiding. Marcus looked down at her hand on his arm, then back to her face. The woman before him was not the same one who had disappeared 15 years ago. She was stronger now, tempered by years of survival. You don't know what these people are capable of, he warned. I know exactly what they're capable of, Elena corrected him. I've been watching them longer than you have. Marcus glanced at Lily, then back to Elena. For the first time in years, he felt something shift inside him, the heavy weight of lone responsibility lifting slightly. We do this smart, he finally said, not just charging in. Together, Elena insisted, with a plan. Marcus nodded slowly, years of stubborn independence giving way to something he had forgotten, the strength of standing with people who loved you. Together, he agreed. The sky darkened over the small town as evening settled in. Stars began to pierce through the blue-black canvas above as Marcus walked through the hospital doors and into the parking lot. His heavy boots crunched on the gravel as he approached the gathered bikers. Nearly 400 men stood waiting, their leather vests catching the last light of day. Some leaned against their motorcycles. Others stood in small groups, talking quietly. When Marcus appeared, a hush fell over them. They straightened, turned, and gave him their full attention. Marcus climbed onto the bed of a pickup truck that belonged to one of his oldest friends. From this makeshift stage, he could see all their faces. Men he'd ridden with for decades, newcomers who'd joined the Brotherhood more recently, and allies from chapters across 3 states. Thank you all for coming, Marcus began, his deep voice carrying across the lot. I owe you the truth about why we're here. He took a deep breath. The moment felt heavier than he'd expected. For years, he'd kept parts of his past locked away, protected by silence and distance. 15 years ago, I made a mistake. His words hung in the cool evening air. I crossed some dangerous people. I didn't know who they were at the time, but they've been watching me, watching us, ever since. The faces before him remained stoic, but he could feel their attention sharpen. My wife, Lily's mother, didn't abandon us like I thought. She left to protect us, to draw these people away. Marcus's voice grew rougher. All these years, I blamed her for leaving when she was actually sacrificing everything to keep us safe. A few of the older riders nodded, understanding the weight of such a revelation. Now they've found us. They hurt my daughter to send me a message. Marcus clenched his fists, then deliberately relaxed them. They want me to come alone tonight. They're expecting me to bring violence, expecting the man I used to be. The crowd shifted. Several men crossed their arms, their expressions hardening. You know I'd ride into hell for any of you, Marcus continued, and I know you'd do the same for me. That's what brotherhood means. Bear, one of the oldest members, called out, Just say the word, Marcus. We'll tear this town apart to find whoever hurt Lily. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Marcus held up his hand. That's what they're counting on. They want us to be exactly what this town fears. Violent, destructive, dangerous. They want us to prove everyone right about who we are. He looked across the sea of faces, men who had been labeled outlaws and troublemakers their whole lives. But here's what they don't know, Marcus said, his voice growing stronger. They don't know that we're more than that. They don't know what it really means to be brothers. Marcus jumped down from the truck bed and walked among them. My daughter almost died. And what did you all do? You didn't bring violence. You brought blood donations. You brought food for the hospital staff. You stood guard without causing trouble. He stopped beside Bear. You fixed that old woman's car in the parking lot yesterday. Bear shrugged, looking slightly embarrassed. Alternator was shot. Simple fix. Marcus moved through the crowd, acknowledging acts of kindness he'd witnessed over the past 2 days. This town expected chaos when we rolled in. Instead, you showed them something else. He returned to the truck and climbed back up. Tonight, they're expecting me to come alone, angry, looking for revenge. But I'm not going to give them what they want. The parking lot fell completely silent. I'm asking you to help me protect my family, not with violence, but with strategy. With the kind of strength that doesn't need to hurt others to prove itself. Marcus looked at the men who had been his family for decades. I'm not asking you to fight. I'm asking you to stand with me and show this town, show these people who we really are. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Bear stepped forward. I didn't ride 200 miles to let you face this alone, brother. He looked around at the others. We protect our own. Always have. One by one, the others voiced their agreement. Not with shouts or threats, but with quiet, determined promises of solidarity. As full darkness settled over them, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in years. The true strength of brotherhood, transformed from a force of intimidation into something far more powerful. Midnight had long passed when Marcus gathered the core team in the hospital's empty cafeteria. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the faces of 12 men and women seated around 2 pushed-together tables. 5 of Marcus's most trusted bikers sat alongside 3 local police officers, the hospital security chief, and Elena. Sheriff Collins, a stern woman with 30 years of law enforcement experience, leaned forward with her elbows on the table. So they want you at the old quarry, she said, tapping a spot on the map spread between them. 4 a.m., alone. Marcus nodded. That's what the message said. Sheriff Collins had surprised Marcus. When he'd approached her earlier with the truth, he'd expected resistance, maybe even arrest. Instead, she'd listened, asked tough questions, and then offered help. The quarry gives them advantages, said Hawk, one of Marcus's oldest friends in the club. His weathered face creased with concern as he studied the map. Limited access roads, high ground on 3 sides. If they've got spotters, they'll see anyone coming for miles. That's why they chose it, Marcus replied. Elena leaned forward. The hospital lights made her look tired, but her eyes were sharp and focused. They'll have at least 12 men, maybe more. The sheriff raised an eyebrow. You seem certain. I've been watching them for 15 years, Elena said quietly. They never move without backup. Officer Parker, a younger cop with a military background, pointed to the map. We could position units here and here, but it would take time to get to you if things went bad. Marcus shook his head. They'll be watching for police. If they spot a single patrol car, they'll disappear and come back harder next time. So what exactly are you proposing? The sheriff asked. Marcus took a deep breath. I go in as they expect, alone on my bike. But I won't be alone. Not really. He outlined the plan, pointing to various locations on the map. The bikers would position themselves in teams, using the terrain for cover. Some would arrive hours beforehand, hiking in through the woods that bordered the quarry. Others would be mobile, ready to move at the first signal. And the police? Sheriff Collins asked. Stationed here and here, Marcus said, indicating positions further out. No marked cars, no uniforms. You're our second layer, but staying invisible until needed. Bear, the largest of the bikers present, crossed his massive arms. We're not looking for a fight, just containment until the law can take over. The sheriff studied Marcus for a long moment. You know, when 400 bikers rolled into my town, this isn't how I imagined things would go. A ghost of a smile touched Marcus's lips. We're full of surprises. The hospital security chief, who had been silent until now, cleared his throat. What about Lily? Will she be safe here? 6 of our most trusted men will stay at the hospital, Marcus answered. Plus your regular security. She won't be left unprotected. For the next hour, they refined the details. Communication channels were established, fallback positions identified, contingencies discussed. Local officers and bikers who had never trusted each other found common ground in the language of strategy and protection. Elena sketched what she knew of the group's typical formations, their habits, their methods. They rely on fear, she explained. They expect people to run, to panic. When that doesn't happen, they get thrown off balance. As the plan solidified, Sheriff Collins made one thing clear. This isn't about revenge. This is about bringing dangerous people to justice. No one plays hero. No one takes unnecessary risks. She fixed Marcus with a hard stare. That includes you. I stopped looking for revenge the moment I saw what happened to my daughter, Marcus replied quietly. This is about ending it, for good. Near 3 a.m, they finalized the last details. Maps were committed to memory, then destroyed. Communication checks were completed. Timing was confirmed. As they prepared to move out, Elena caught Marcus's arm. Be careful, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. For a moment, the years between them seemed to disappear. Marcus nodded, unable to find words for everything he wanted to say. Bear approached, keys in hand. Bikes are ready? Everyone's in position or moving there now. The sheriff buttoned her civilian jacket over her tactical vest. My people are ready too. Marcus looked around at the unlikely alliance he'd brought together. Bikers and law enforcement, former enemies now unified by a common purpose. Whatever happened at the quarry in a few hours, something had already changed in this town. Something important. Let's move, he said. The eastern sky was just beginning to lighten, a thin gray line breaking the darkness as Marcus rode alone into the quarry. His motorcycle's headlight cut through the pre-dawn shadows, illuminating the steep rock walls that rose on 3 sides of the vast open pit. Gravel crunched beneath his tires as he followed the winding access road down to the quarry floor. He killed the engine at the center of the clearing. The sudden silence was heavy, broken only by the soft ping of his cooling engine and the distant call of an early morning bird. Marcus removed his helmet, hanging it on the handlebar, and stood beside his bike. His breath formed small clouds in the cold morning air. You actually came alone, a voice called from the shadows. I'm impressed. Marcus didn't turn toward the voice immediately. He scanned the rim of the quarry, noticing the faint outlines of several figures positioned along the upper edges, just as Elena had predicted. You didn't leave me much choice, Marcus replied, his voice calm despite the tension coiling inside him. A man stepped forward from behind a stack of abandoned equipment. He was older than Marcus expected, probably in his 60s, but carried himself with the straight-backed confidence of someone accustomed to power. 2 younger men flanked him, hands resting casually near concealed weapons. Victor, Marcus acknowledged, recognizing the man from his past. It's been a long time. Victor smiled thinly. 20 years. Yet here we are, unfinished business between us. Is that what you call attacking my daughter? Business? Marcus clenched his fists but maintained his position. More men emerged from various hiding spots around the quarry floor, 5 in total now visible, with others surely watching from above. An unfortunate necessity, Victor said, spreading his hands. You should have left the past buried, Marcus. When your girl started asking questions, stirring things up, well, messages needed sending. Marcus took a measured breath. Around the quarry, hidden in the pre-dawn darkness, he knew his allies were in position. Bikers concealed in the tree line, officers in plain clothes waiting for their signal. The wireless transmitter in his jacket pocket was broadcasting every word. I'm here now, Marcus said. Let's finish this between us. Leave my family out of it. Victor laughed, the sound echoing off the quarry walls. Family? Is that what you call it? The woman who ran away? The daughter who barely knows you? You threw away your real family, your brothers, years ago. I chose a different path, Marcus replied. And yet here you stand, wearing that jacket, riding that bike. Victor moved closer, his men fanning out behind him. Once brotherhood, always brotherhood. The things we did together can't be undone. The people we buried won't stay silent. Marcus remained still, drawing Victor in. Is that what this is about? You're afraid I'll talk about Riverdale? About the warehouse? Victor's face hardened. You always were smart, Marcus. Too smart for your own good. Smart enough to know you didn't just come after me because Lily was asking questions, Marcus said. You're afraid because the FBI reopened the case last year. You think I've been talking to them. Victor's confident expression flickered. This was new information, a calculated risk Marcus had taken based on a newspaper article Elena had kept. The gamble paid off as uncertainty crossed Victor's face. Have you? Victor demanded, hand moving toward his jacket. Would I be standing here if I had? Marcus countered. The tension stretched between them, a thread pulled taut. Victor's men shifted nervously, exchanging glances. No more games, Victor said finally, drawing a gun. You're coming with us. We have questions that need answering. Privately. Marcus raised his hands slowly. You sure that's how you want this to play out? Victor gestured with the weapon. What choice do you have? Marcus lowered his arms deliberately, reaching for his pocket. Victor's gun snapped up, but Marcus simply removed a small device. I chose to not come alone after all, he said, pressing the button. Instantly, floodlights blazed from multiple positions around the quarry, bathing the entire area in brilliant light. Dozens of figures emerged from hiding places, bikers in their leather cuts appearing from behind rock formations, officers in tactical gear rising from concealment. FBI! Police! Drop your weapons! The commands echoed from all directions as Sheriff Collins led the charge, her badge gleaming in the sudden light. Victor's men froze, caught completely by surprise. The spotters on the ridge found themselves surrounded by bikers who had silently positioned themselves throughout the night. Like I said, Marcus told a stunned Victor, I chose a different path. Morning sunlight spilled across the quarry, painting the stone walls with warm golden light. Marcus sat on a boulder, watching as officers led Victor and his men to waiting patrol cars. The night's tension had dissolved into a strange calm that felt almost unreal after days of fear and uncertainty. Sheriff Collins approached, her boots crunching on the gravel. That was some plan you put together, Hale. She stopped beside him, hands on her hips. Never thought I'd see the day when Hell's Angels worked alongside my deputies. Marcus nodded, his eyes tracking the last patrol car as it climbed the access road. Never thought I'd be the one making that call. Your testimony about the Riverdale incident will put Victor away for good, she said, along with the assault on your daughter and the threats against your family. I know. Marcus rubbed a hand across his face, feeling the weight of years pressing down on his shoulders. The morning light seemed to expose everything. Not just the quarry around them, but the dark corners of his past he'd spent decades avoiding. I wasn't always the man Lily thinks I am, he admitted quietly. When I rode with Victor, I did things, chose paths that can't be undone. Sheriff Collins didn't respond immediately. She watched as bikers helped officers gather evidence, working together with surprising efficiency. People change, Marcus, she finally said. 20 years ago, I wouldn't have trusted you within a mile of my town. Today, you just helped bring down one of the most dangerous men in 3 states without firing a single shot. Marcus looked down at his hands. They were the same hands that had once hurt people, the same hands that had helped Victor bury evidence. They were also the hands that had cradled Lily as a newborn, that had fixed her bicycle chain, that had held Elena's picture through lonely nights. I can't erase what I did, he said, but I couldn't let Lily pay for my mistakes. Or Elena. A motorcycle engine rumbled to life across the quarry. Marcus watched as his brothers began preparing to leave, their job done. Some nodded respectfully to the officers they'd worked alongside through the night. What happens now? Sheriff Collins asked. I testify, Marcus said simply. Tell the truth about everything. Whatever happens after that, I'll face it. She nodded, seemingly satisfied with his answer. Your daughter's waiting for you at the hospital. I told her we got them. She paused, then added, She's proud of you, you know. The thought brought an unexpected tightness to Marcus's throat. He stood, brushing dust from his jeans. Sheriff, he called as she turned to leave. Thank you for trusting me when you had every reason not to. She offered a small smile. Like I said, people change. By mid-morning, word had spread through town about what happened at the quarry. Marcus rode his motorcycle slowly down Main Street, heading toward the hospital. He noticed people watching from storefronts and sidewalks, their expressions curious rather than fearful. Outside the general store, Mr. Whitaker, who had once refused to serve Marcus, raised his coffee cup in acknowledgement as he passed. At the intersection, Mrs. Peterson actually waved from her garden. When Marcus reached the hospital, he found several of his brothers still standing guard. They straightened as he approached, offering respectful nods. Brothers, Marcus greeted them, his voice rough with emotion. Word's getting around, said Bones, a grizzled veteran who had ridden with Marcus for over 20 years. Sheriff's been telling folks how we helped take down Victor's crew. Marcus glanced around the parking lot. The hospital staff moved freely among the bikers now, some even chatting with them. A nurse was handing out coffee cups to men who had stood watch all night. They're starting to see us different, Bones continued. Not just outlaws anymore. A young doctor approached, extending his hand to Marcus. I just wanted to say thank you, he said. My brother was one of the officers at the quarry last night. He told me what you all did. Marcus shook the man's hand, surprised by the gesture. As he walked toward the hospital entrance, he noticed an elderly woman sitting on a bench near the door. She had been watching the exchange with thoughtful eyes. When Marcus approached, she patted the space beside her. Sit for a moment, she invited. You look like you could use a rest. Marcus hesitated, then lowered himself onto the bench. I've lived in this town 67 years, she said without preamble. Seen all sorts come and go. When those motorcycles rolled in, I thought we were in for trouble. She glanced toward the bikers in the parking lot. Seems I was wrong. Marcus followed her gaze. They came because I asked, because family protects family. The woman nodded thoughtfully. That's what this town is starting to see, not just men in leather. Protectors. Late morning sunshine poured through the hospital window, casting warm patterns across Lily's bed. Her bruises had begun to fade from angry purple to softer shades of blue and yellow. The swelling around her eye had gone down enough that she could open it halfway, revealing a sliver of her bright hazel iris. "The nurse says I might go home tomorrow," Lily said, her voice stronger than it had been the day before. She adjusted herself against the pillows, wincing slightly at the movement. Elena reached forward to help, her touch gentle as she supported Lily's shoulder. "Easy now. There's no rush." Marcus stood by the window, watching them. Something about seeing Elena care for their daughter made his chest tighten. It was a scene he'd imagined countless times over the years. Elena being there for the little moments, the scraped knees, the fevers, the nightmares, all the things she'd missed, all the things he'd believed she'd chosen to miss. "Dad?" Lily's voice pulled him back to the present. "You okay? You're staring." "Just thinking," he replied, moving closer to the bed. "Doctor says your blood work looks good. No internal bleeding." Elena smoothed Lily's hair back from her forehead. "Your father hasn't slept properly in days. Not since—" She trailed off, unwilling to mention the attack. "Not since you decided to play detective and track down your missing mom without telling me," Marcus said. But his words held no anger now, just concern tinged with fondness. Lily had the grace to look sheepish. "I wanted to understand. All those years of silence. The way you'd look at her photo when you thought I wasn't watching." Marcus caught Elena's gaze over their daughter's head. The woman he'd loved, then hated, then mourned, sitting here as if the 15-year gap might be bridged with enough careful steps. "I'm going to get some fresh coffee," Elena said, standing. "Would either of you like anything?" "Water would be nice," Lily replied. Marcus shook his head. "I'm good." When Elena left the room, Lily reached for her father's hand. "She didn't abandon us, Dad." "I know that now." He sat on the edge of the bed, careful not to jostle her. "But all those years, thinking she just walked away from you, from us, it was easier to be angry than hurt." "She looks at you the same way you look at her photo," Lily said softly. "Like something precious that got lost." Marcus felt heat rise in his face. "It's complicated, Lily. It doesn't have to be." She squeezed his hand. "She ran because she loved us. You stayed strong because you loved me. Maybe it's time to stop punishing each other for doing what you thought was right." The wisdom in her words, coming from the child they'd both tried to protect in their own ways, made Marcus pause. When had his little girl grown so insightful? "When did you get so smart?" he asked, voicing his thoughts. Lily smiled, though it clearly hurt her split lip. "Learned from the best. You always told me to look for the truth, even when it's hard to face." Elena returned with a cup of water for Lily and a coffee for herself. She paused in the doorway, seeming to sense the moment between father and daughter. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Yeah," Lily answered. "Dad was just realizing I'm the smartest person in the family." Elena laughed, a sound Marcus hadn't heard in 15 years. It struck him how familiar it still was, like a song remembered from childhood. "Your humility clearly comes from my side," Elena said, setting the water down and helping Lily take a sip. For a moment, they almost felt like a family again. The thought scared Marcus more than facing down Victor and his crew had. "I should check on the guys outside," he said, standing abruptly. "Marcus." Elena's voice stopped him at the door. "They're fine. The nurse just brought them sandwiches. Stay. The simple request, stay, carried the weight of 15 years of absence. Marcus hesitated, then nodded and returned to his chair. Lily looked between them, then yawned dramatically. "I think I need a nap," she announced, settling back against her pillows and closing her eyes with exaggerated quickness. Elena raised an eyebrow. Subtle. "She never was," Marcus replied. "Used to fake sleep during movies so I'd carry her to bed." "Some things don't change." Elena's smile turned wistful. "And some things do?" They sat in silence for a few minutes, watching their daughter's breathing slow into actual sleep. When they were sure she was out, Elena spoke first. "Thank you for raising her so well, Marcus. She's everything I hoped she'd become." Marcus looked at their sleeping daughter, then at the woman he'd once built his life around. "She missed you. Every day." "I missed you both," Elena whispered. "Every hour of every day." Marcus took a deep breath. "I was so angry at you for leaving. I thought you just didn't want us anymore." "I know," Elena said softly. "I should have looked for you. Should have questioned why you'd leave without a word." Marcus's voice roughened with emotion. "Instead, I just let my pride and hurt take over. I'm sorry for that, Elena, for not fighting harder to find the truth." The afternoon sun hung low in the sky, casting golden light across the hospital parking lot, where dozens of motorcycles still gleamed in neat rows. Their numbers had thinned since morning, as small groups departed with handshakes, hugs, and promises to stay in touch. The thunder of engines punctuated the otherwise peaceful afternoon as another group of 5 bikers pulled away, heading back to their lives across state lines. Marcus stood on the hospital steps, watching them go. For years, those motorcycles had represented his only real family, a brotherhood forged in loyalty and shared roads. Now, as he watched them leave, he felt something shifting inside him. "It's strange seeing them go," Elena said, joining him outside. She wrapped her cardigan tighter around herself against the cool breeze. "For days, they've been everywhere. Now the town almost seems too quiet." Marcus nodded. "They did good here. Better than anyone expected." "Including you?" Elena asked, glancing at his profile. "Maybe," he admitted. "I called them for revenge. They came and showed mercy instead." Down the street, an elderly couple waved at a departing group of bikers. Just days ago, those same townspeople would have locked their doors at the mere rumble of motorcycle engines. Now they offered thanks and farewell waves. "Lily's asking for you," Elena said after a moment. "The doctor says we can take her home tomorrow morning." Home. The word hung between them, complicated by 15 years of separation. Whose home? His small house at the edge of town? Elena's hidden cabin in the woods? Or something new they might build together? "I told her we'd figure things out," Elena continued, as if reading his thoughts. "Take it slow." Marcus turned to face her fully. "Is that what you want? To take it slow?" "I want—" Elena paused, choosing her words carefully. "I want to stop running. I want Lily to have both her parents, and I want a chance to know the man you've become." A group of 3 bikers approached them before Marcus could respond. Johnny, his oldest friend in the club, led them. "Last of us are heading out, boss," Johnny said, extending his hand. "The rest already went ahead." Marcus grasped his hand firmly. "Thanks for coming, for everything." "Family's family," Johnny replied simply. He glanced at Elena, then back at Marcus. "You staying put?" The question wasn't just about his physical location, and they both knew it. It was about choices, about whether Marcus would return to the life he'd built within the club, or forge something new here. Yeah, Marcus said, surprising himself with how certain he felt. I'm staying. Johnny nodded, understanding passing between them. Keep in touch, and bring that daughter of yours to visit when she's better. My Sherry's been asking about her. The men embraced, thumping each other's backs. As they pulled apart, Johnny leaned in close. You found something worth holding on to here. Don't let it go this time. The three bikers mounted their motorcycles, engines roaring to life. With final waves, they pulled away, leaving Marcus and Elena standing alone on the steps. So you're staying? Elena said softly, once the rumble of engines faded. Marcus looked at her, seeing both the woman he'd loved and the stranger she'd become during their years apart. I'm choosing something different this time. They walked back inside together, not touching but close enough to feel each other's presence. When they reached Lily's room, they found her sitting up in bed, color returning to her cheeks. Are they all gone? She asked. Last one's just left, Marcus replied, sitting beside her bed. Town's getting back to normal. Lily reached for his hand. What about us? Are we getting back to normal too? Marcus looked at his daughter's hopeful face, then at Elena standing by the window, silhouetted against the afternoon light. Normal had never been part of their story. But maybe something better than normal was possible now. Not back to normal, he said, squeezing Lily's hand gently. Forward to something new. Elena moved closer, tentatively placing her hand atop theirs. Together. Marcus covered her hand with his free one, completing the circle. Together. In that moment, with his daughter's resilient spirit and Elena's cautious hope, Marcus knew he was choosing a path he'd never thought possible. One built on forgiveness rather than vengeance, on family rather than solitude. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in years, he believed in redemption. Not just for Elena, who had fled to protect them, or for Lily, whose courage had brought them back together, but for himself most of all. I hope you like this story. Please share what's your favorite part of the story and where in the world you are watching from. Have a wonderful day.